Yo guys, what is going on? Blossom's back and welcome back to another episode of Top Drives. Today we're picking up where we left off with the two-part series to the top 3 best and the top 3 worst of each rarity. Of course, we're still in Ultra Rares part 2 where we're gonna pick up with RQ58. Last episode we ended with 57. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out. The link will be in the description below. And once again, thank you so much for all the positive feedback on this series. If you can't get enough of it, I'm also going to be recording the same series but for uncommon, so the top 3 best and top 3 worst uncommons, and I'll be releasing that video out early for my patrons and my YouTube members. So if you guys want to see that, well, just be a patron or a YouTube member. If not, just wait like an extra day and it'll probably come out in like 2 days, 3 days time, something like that. But anyway, once again, slight little disclaimer, this is my opinion, giving you what I think are the top 3 best and the top 3 worst. You can agree or disagree, it's totally up to you. Each man has his own opinion. But I have to say, I have played this game for at least 4 hours a day for almost 4 years now, so I'm pretty sure that I know what cars are better than others. But anyway, let's get into it. RQ58, we're gonna start off with the Lotus 340R. Yes, I promised in the first part that we were gonna start off with the Lotus 340R, and that is exactly what we're doing today. I don't think that this car really needs an introduction. This car has probably won you the HDI FAP that just came out recently. I knew that it was in a lot of people's hands. It wasn't in my hand, because my whole strategy was that I had to survive by beating the Lotus 340R with maxed epics. That being said though, it's a fantastic car, incredibly light, amazing handling, low 0 to 60. This is basically the entire embodiment of the word specialization. The 340R is most likely or probably the best ultra rare in the game. So if I say that there's an ultra rare that is slightly worse than that, it's still a compliment, because there is nothing that can triumph the 340R. Anyway, we started with an incredible high. Everything is going to be downhill from now, but let's go with the next two. So the next one I want to talk about is the Maserati Quattroporte. Now what makes this car so special is that in terms of its stats, it's not like the best in any case. What makes it so special is that kind of like the Ford Bronco, it's in a class of its own. This is the only standard tire Italian ultra rare. There is no other car like it. So if there is any rain Italian event, the Maserati Quattroporte is going to be your best friend. And because of that, because it's like the Bronco, it's in a class of its own, it makes the car extra special. Last but not least, the car that I want to highlight for the top 3 best will be the Chevrolet SS Turbo, or the Chevrolet Cobalt SS Turbo. It is the best medium city streets car in this entire RQ lineup. It beats the Charger SRT8 and it beats the Charger Daytona. It also beats all the other mediums that are in here, which aren't a lot. Because when you do performance tire mediums in RQ58, I'm pretty sure those 3 Americans are the only 3 that you get. So that is my top 3. To be completely honest with you, starting off with the 340R was maybe a bit of a mistake, because the other 2 cars that I showcased after that, they're good, but they're nowhere near as good as the 340R. I want to give a shout out to the BMW Z4M Coupe. The only reason why this isn't in my top 3 is because it kind of is in the same specialization route. It specializes in the same tracks as the 340R. It's a twisty car and it's just worse in every way, so I couldn't give it a top 3, but it's an honorable mention nonetheless. Now let's talk about the bottom 3. The first one I want to talk about is the Bentley Walter Owen edition. This is Leo's most hated car, and I have to agree. In my notes here, I wrote down that the Bentley Mulsanne, Walter Owen edition, is the opposite of a sleeper. A sleeper car is a car, well, I've talked about this in the last episode. If it has a sleeper tag, it's not a sleeper. But basically, what a sleeper car is meant to be is a car with underwhelming on-paper stats, but it performs better than that. The Bentley Mulsanne is the opposite of a sleeper because it has decent stats on paper. Don't forget that this car is also medium, but it just doesn't perform like it says it does. It's also incredibly heavy, and it's just a huge disappointment. I know it has 80 handling, but when you weigh 2.5 tons, you can't corner. Anyway, the next 2 that I have in the bottom tier of RQ58 are both going to be Porsches. The first one is the Porsche 911 Carrera Cabriolet. It's a bit of an all-rounder that doesn't hit the mark anywhere. And finally, it's the Porsche Boxster. Now, Pops has told me that this car has MRA. It does have decent MRA, to be fair, but like I said, if you have less than 170 top speed, your MRA isn't going to matter. The handling is okay as well, but once again, it's second in comparison to the BMW Z4M, and it's not even second to the 340R. It's like 20th to the 340R. Anyway, moving on to RQ59, I want to first talk about my, top 3. There are a lot of gems in RQ59, kind of like RQ36 with the rares. RQ59 has a lot of bangers. The first one I want to talk about is the Infinity G37. Let's be completely honest, this is another one of those ultra rares like the 340R that has probably won you a prize car before. 5.60 to 60, 80 handling, low ground clearance, and standard tires. This, in my opinion, is like the Cadillac ELR for ultra rares. It's a fantastic car of a convertible niche, and what makes it so special is that because it has low ground clearance, its handling is much better than the competition. A lot of other standard tire ultra rares has less handling, but that's mainly because they also have medium ground clearance. So the Infinity G37 is a twisty specialist, and like I said, it's like the ELR for the ultra rares. It's a fantastic car that you definitely want to keep. Next up on the list is going to be the Renault Megane 275. This car needs no introduction. It has the highest handling out of every ultra rare in the game. There are only 2 ultra rares that hit 88 that are not prize cars. That's the Megane 275 Trophy and the Lotus Exige S2. But unlike the Lotus Exige S2, the 275 goes one further because not only does it have the highest handling for an ultra rare, the thing's also medium ground clearance, which is really hard to believe. Medium ground clearance, 88 handling, and not even in the RQ60s. That is a bang for your buck. Next up, the final one in the top 3 is going to be the Mercedes-AMG G63. This car goes hand in hand with the Trailblazer at RQ55. The Trailblazer takes a testable in the 1 mile, whereas the AMG G63 takes the quarter mile and the half mile. So having 2 of these cars together, you're going to have ultra rare drags for all surface or for off-road set for the rest of your life, or at least until the next update if there's going to be a better car. Though we've already had literally like 5-6 big updates, and nothing has trumped the Trailblazer SS in its category. So I doubt the next update's going to bring a better car that's actually better than the Trailblazer in the ultra rare. Maybe I just jinxed it right there, who knows. Honorable mentions for RQ59 is going to go out to the Dodge Stealth RT Twin Turbo. 4-wheel drive, also really good handling. It's kind of like the 4-wheel drive performance tire version of the Infinity G37. The only difference is that its niche is a lot less common than the standard tires that the G37 brings to the table. And the last honorable mention that I want to give it to is the Aston Martin DB3S. This thing has amazing MRA, low 0 to 60, and decent handling to boot. It's a good fast circuit car that also is pretty decent on the drags. But anyway, let's talk about the worst 3, the bottom 3 RQ59s. The first one I want to talk about is the Vauxhall Insignia. Once again, I thought this car had a sleeper tag, but it doesn't. I know it has a decently high top speed, but it's still a really underwhelming car. I want you to compare this to the RQ52 Volvo. Now, in the first part, the RQ52 Volvo was in my top 3 for the best RQ52s in the game. Here are the stats. The base stats for the RQ52 Volvo is 5.8. 80. So you're telling me for 7 RQ less, I can get a car that has a lower 0 to 60 and handles better than the Vauxhall Insignia. I'm pretty sure that this car is inflated in RQ due to its incredibly high top speed, but it doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, it's not a dragster, and you're not going to put this car per se on a test bowl because it's still going to lose to the Thanos Countach, which is 8 RQ cheaper than this. So really, the Vauxhall Insignia VXR doesn't really have a place, and that's why it's in the bottom 3. Well, it doesn't really have a place in the top. It has a place in the bottom. The next 2 that I want to talk about that are in the bottom 3 alongside the Vauxhall Insignia is going to be the Mercedes AMG C55. Once again, when it comes to RQ59, I know you have medium ground clearance, but that is standard tire handling right there. 77 on a performance tire car, it's honestly heresy. So honestly, it's not a good ride. And the last one I want to talk about, it hurts me a little bit to say it, but it is the Dodge Challenger concept. 4.50 to 60, 7.9 handling, 174 top speed, is one of those all-rounder cars that once again doesn't really hit the mark. Kind of like the Porsche Boxer that we saw in RQ58. This car just isn't really a specialist in anything. It's not really going to win you anything. It can't pull out any surprise wins. Although it has a decent amount of tags, the Dodge Challenger concept is just not it. I mean, it should get a 4th tag, literally just called Oh, garbage. It hurts me to say it. It hurts me to say it. Last but not least, we're going to move to RQ60. I don't know why I said last but not least. We're just getting started. But RQ60, here are my top threes. The first one is going to be the Di Tommaso Guara. Here it is. Oh, there we go. It's the sensitivity coming back. Where's that yellow little beast? That yellow tomato. 4.586. It's kind of funny. I wrote this down in my notes that the Di Tommaso Guara is basically a discount Fiat 030, and it really is a discount Fiat or Abarth 030. It has the same stats. When you max it out, I think it's like what, 3.70 to 60 90 handling. So it's not even a discount 030. It has better on paper stats than the 030. The 030 is 4095. This is 3795. That is an incredibly low 0 to 60. What sets this car back is that it has no MRA whatsoever, but it doesn't matter because this is a twisty car that has more than 172 top speed, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. Next up is going to be the TVR SEAC. Now this one breaks my rule a little bit because it's a car of amazing MRA, but it has less than 170 top speed. Why it breaks my rule is because it handles pretty well as well. Unlike most dragsters that handle under, I would say, 74, 73 handling, the TVR 450, if you max it out 233, would hit about 88 handling. So that's actually a decent car for the fast circuit. So not only can you deploy this car on the quarter mile and the half mile where it will do pretty well, you can put it on the fast circuit as well. There are not a lot of dragsters where you can say they'll do pretty well on the fast circuit because cars like the Charger 3 or the Miura SV, although they're fantastic dragsters, you put them on anything with 2 or 3 turns and you're probably going to lose by more than 50 points. But the TVR 450 SEAC has the fast circuit covered. Also, the reason why I chose the TVR 450 is because RQ60 is just filled with just mediocre stuff. Everything here is kind of like the same. 4883, right? 4783, 4883, 4883. Where's another one? 4883. So, you know, a lot of these cars are just very well balanced in RQ60. There isn't one that's like a lot better than the rest and a lot worse than the rest. So the TVR was, you know, it's pretty easy for the TVR to kind of stand out. The last one that I want to give it to is the Nissan R32. Now, the Nissan R32, once again, breaks my rule with good MRA and low top speed because this is nowhere close to 170 top speed, but it does have good MRA. Now, the Nissan Skyline GTR, I've said this to so many people, is probably the most controversial point that I like to talk about of ultra rares. This is a 332 car. Genuinely, this is a 332 car. The R32 is a dragster. Now, why this is an outlier to my rule of less than 170 miles per hour good MRA is because if you filter everything by just Japanese ultras, there really isn't anything that beats the GTR R32. This thing beats the R33 on the drags. It beats the Civic Type R on the drags. It beats the Nismo on the drags. Is it the Nismo? What is it? The Type Z, whatever it is, the Nissan 370Z. It beats the 370Z on the drags. The R32 is a drag Japanese specialist. Now, outside of Japan, it really isn't super useful, but when it comes to just Japanese events, when there's drags in it, the R32 is the best car to get. When you think about it, the next one to get is you either max out the R34 or you're on to the R390. So there's not a lot of competition for the R32, which makes it so unique. If there is going to be a Japanese update with a bunch of new Japanese cars, I'm pretty sure the R32 is going to become irrelevant, which is a bit of a shame, but for now it's a fantastic ultra rare. Now let's talk about the bottom 3, the worst RQ60s. The first one I want to talk about is the Range Rover Sport. Much like most Range Rovers, it's heavy, it doesn't handle very well. The next two that I want to talk about is going to be the Bentley Grand Convertible. Once again, this is a car that doesn't know where it is. It's in the middle of purgatory over here. The 0 to 60, not low enough to be a dragster. The top speed is high, the handling isn't good enough to be a twisty, but it's also trying to be a medium ground clearance car at the same time, and it doesn't have a roof. I mean, I guess the convertible thing is a niche, which is a pretty good thing, but like everything else about it is just like, it's just off the mark. Once again, it's basically like the Dodge Challenger concept, but with a much higher top speed. The last one I want to talk about that's in the bottom 3 is going to go to the Volvo S60 Tier 6 or T6, whatever it is. The worst thing about the T6 all-wheel drive is that it's a worse version of the Golf R32, and to be be worse than the Golf R32, you actually have to try to be really bad. The 0 to 60, although is quite low, means nothing because this is a city streets medium car, and it doesn't handle very well. So unfortunately, the Volvo S60 T6 is going to be completely useless. Also, the fact that it's a four-wheel drive medium ground clearance car basically means that it's a car that you want to deploy in the rain, and if you're going to deploy a car in the rain, you want it to handle, and this car doesn't handle. So unfortunately, it's going to be an immediate fuse whenever I get it. So let's move on to RQ61s now. Now 61s, once again, kind of mediocre. Most of the cars are kind of the same. You know how in 60 it was 4883, now we're dealing with 4783. Oh, 0.1 difference. Wow. But let's start off with the goods. So the first one is the Viper RT10. Now the Viper RT10 is, in my opinion, the best RQ61. It stands out from everything else in its competition. There's no car that's RQ61 that has as low of a 0 to 60 as the RT10, and I know the handling isn't the best, but it still goes over 90 when you max it out. And lo and behold, the RT10's MRA isn't hot garbage either, so you're getting a decent 0 to 60, or actually a pretty good 0 to 60 for its RQ with decent MRA. It's not good MRA, but it's not horrendous. It's not like 30, it's not 40, it's not 50, you know what I mean? So the RT10 is a fantastic 61. The next two that I want to talk about is the Murano GTC. The Murano GTC is a very strange SUV. It handles well, but the 0 to 60 is hot garbage, but the MRA is really good. Now, I'm not going to say, oh, the MRA is good, but it has less than 170 top speed, so it's bad. This is an SUV that we're talking about, okay? I don't expect them to get 170. In fact, 140 for an SUV is quite high. A lot of SUVs don't go over 130, so that's a bit of an advantage right there. The only weak part about the GTC is that it's pretty heavy and it has a really bad 0 to 60, but at the same time, it handles very well. I'm actually surprised how well it handles. 77 handling. I mean, that is the same handling on a four-wheel drive SUV all-surface tire car as the Volvo that was in my bottom three for RQ60. That's just strange. The next one that I want to talk about, that's the final car in my top three, is the Lotus Carlton. And once again, the sensitivity and the scrolling, man, it's killing me. Where is the Carlton? Here it is. Once again, high top speed, great MRA, decent handling, saloon, and it has a medium ground clearance as well. It has, I was gonna say it has a medium ground clearance tag, but I meant to say it has medium ground clearance and it has a sleeper tag. And for once, the sleeper tag actually is true. This car is a sleeper. It's a fantastic little beast. The picture is quite sad though. I would say that, you know, if they changed the picture so they showed the full body of the car, I think that the Lotus Carlton is a beautiful, beautiful car, and the picture doesn't justify it. It makes it look like a hatchback, and it totally isn't. You should show the back and the spoiler that it has. But now let's talk about the bottom three RQ61s. Now, the first two I want to talk about, they come in as a package together. They're going to be the Aston Martins, the Rapides, and the Rapide Bertone Jet 2+2. Although their on-paper stats are pretty good, they kind of remind me of Bentleys. They're Bentleys, but like slightly lighter. But like when I mean Bentley, but slightly lighter, they're still incredibly heavy. We're talking about 1,900 kgs on both of them. Yes, they handle okay. Yes, their 0 to 60s are kind of meh, but that's exactly what they are. They're kind of just mediocre cars. I have to be completely honest, the Aston Martins are not horrible, but you know, like I said, when it comes to RQ61s, all the cars are kind of just on the same wavelength together. It's kind of hard to find a car that is outlying in like the bad, in the negatives, and in the positives as well. Like I said, the best RQ61 is the Viper. That car stands out, but everything else is kind of well balanced. The last one that I want to talk about, which is in my bottom three for RQ61s, is going to be the Mercedes-Benz C350. Once again, a standard tire car that doesn't handle is a recipe for disaster. Now, let's move on to RQ62. For RQ62, the top three were pretty easy to find. The first one is the Lotus Exige S1. It's just a slightly worse version of the Lotus 340R, but like I said again, it's still a compliment saying that you're a slightly worse version of what probably is the best ultra in the game. This car also has MRA, so it's like a Lotus 340R that is competent on the fast circuit. To be completely honest with you though, if you put the 340R against the Exige S1. Although the Exige S1 would win, it will only win by 50, you know. The next one I want to talk about is the Ford Escort Rally Spec. This car is fantastic. You can use it off-road and on-road. It is incredibly light. It handles very well. The 0 to 60 is low. It's a great car for the slalom on-road and off-road. And last but not least is the Infiniti QX30. Now, the Infiniti QX30 has this slight edge. Now, remember that one gameplay video I did with the BMWs on the diesel event, I think it was, and how the Subaru Super Air were beating Epics? Why that was so was because handling means so much when it comes to off-road tracks. And for the Infiniti QX30, there is nothing that gets 78 handling. Like, that is the biggest thing about it. When you max this thing out, it hits 86 handling for a four-wheel drive all-surface tire car. Now, a lot of Japanese SUVs that are ultra handle very well, but filter it out. Filter out Japanese SUVs by handling. Most of them are 77. For some reason, I think all of them are 77, and only the QX30 is 78. And because of that +1 in its handling, it wins most of the twisty off-road races. As you guys know, the only thing that matters in those kind of tracks is how well you handle. Weight doesn't matter, 0 to 60 doesn't matter, top speed doesn't matter. It's all about the handling, and the QX30 has that edge, so that makes it one of the best Japanese all-surface tire SUVs in the game. Now, my bottom 3 RQ62s are going to be, as I turn the page in my notes, the Mini Cooper JCW All 4. Kind of the opposite of the Infiniti, right? It's a four-wheel drive all-surface tire car, but guess what? You're handicapped in handling, you're not going to win anything, and you're not going to be a dragster as well. The thing is, when it comes to all-surface tire four-wheel drive cars, all they're competing for is twisty. That's it. They're all competing for twisty because the drags are locked down. The drags are locked down by two cars, the G63 and the Trailblazer SS. That's all you need. So everything else is basically competing for the twisty track sets. The next two in my bottom is going to be the Porsche Carrera 4, which also has an incredibly ugly picture. This car has, you know, a very mediocre 0 to 60. It doesn't handle very well. It's also low in ground clearance with that four-wheel drive, and it has a disgusting picture, not gonna lie. This car is just very, very underwhelming. I think everybody gets this for free as well. I remember getting this car for free in my daily rewards a long time ago. It was like day 7. I'm now on like day like 2000 or whatever. And then the last one I want to talk about that's in my worst 3, this hurts. This genuinely hurts, but it is the uncle, the Dodge Charger SRT8. Unfortunately, this car is once again kind of like the Challenger concept. It just doesn't have any specialist traits. You think it's a drag car, but it's not even the best dragster, because 4.30 to 60, you have the Tuscan convertible that's 4.1. It's not a twisty car either with 81 handling. In fact, it's gonna lose to anything twisty against the Ford Escort Rally Spec, and if it's not going to lose to the Ford Escort Rally Spec, it's going to lose to the Lotus Exige S1. And you think, oh, it has a high top speed of 175. Well, once again, the Tuscan convertible just does it slightly better. And if it's going to be a testable kind of race, you're going to want to use the RQ51 Purple Countach anyway. So unfortunately, the Charger SRT8 is kind of missing all the shots here. I have to put it in the bottom 3. It really hurts because I love this car, but I gotta be unbiased in this videos, man. Anyway, let's move on to RQ63. Now, RQ63 has so many Blossom choices. It was incredibly hard to choose a top 3 from this RQ. But in the end, I went with the TVR Tamora. The TVR Tamora is the best ultra for the quarter mile, the 1 mile, and the quarter mile and the half mile. The 1 mile goes to the BTR. But the Tamora is absolutely fantastic. It's a pretty lightweight car, which has low 0 to 60, decent MRA, and there you go. Higher top speed than 170 miles per hour. Handling on this thing is irrelevant. This car could have one handling and I wouldn't bat an eye, because this is only meant for the straights. Now, the next two following the TBR Tamora in my top 3 for RQ63 is gonna go to the Cadillac CTS. Now, this car withstood the test of time. You thought that the Citadel was gonna beat it. The Citadel does beat it on City Street Small, I believe, but the CTS Coupe beats it on City Streets Medium. It's one or the other, right? 86 handling, 4-wheel drive center tires. Once again, it's kind kind of like the standard tire version of the Infinity that we just talked about earlier. Because the handling is so good, it kind of has the edge over its competition. When you filter out every single four-wheel drive standard tire ultra in the game, there's no other standard tire car that beats the Cadillac CTS Coupe. There is nothing that goes over 86, so that is a huge plus in itself. And last but not least, I mean, you guys would be raging if I didn't put this in my top 3, and rightly so. It's the Mitsubishi Lancer Evo 4. This thing is an epic killer. It's medium ground clearance, four-wheel drive. It has a 0 to 60 of less than 5 seconds and handling of 85. I mean, when you max it out, I think it's like what, 4.194. I have 3 of the max, but for some reason I don't have the stats memorized. I think it's 4.194. It could even be 4.094. That being said though, the Mitsubishi Lancer Evo 4 with those amazing stats also has four-wheel drive and medium ground clearance. It is one of the best ultra rares in the game. I mean, when it comes down to it, it's always a conversation of the Lotus 340R versus the Mitsubishi Lancer Evo 4. But I think at the end of the day, I did a poll on my YouTube channel and the Lotus 340R did win. Now I got a bunch of honorable mentions because RQ63 is probably the best RQ for ultra rares. I wrote this down. Hot take: RQ63 cars are better than RQ64 cars. But here are all my honorable mentions for RQ63: the Chrysler Citadel, the Ford Focus RS500, the Maloo, and last but not least, the Volkswagen TCR. Now, we're gonna end off with RQ64. Here are my top 3. The first one is gonna go to the Lancia 037 Rally. Now, this thing is just absolutely cracked, okay? The 037 Rally is the best city streets medium car for ultra rares. And that's for dry. So you're telling me that every single medium ground clearance performance tire car can't beat the 037 Rally, which has off-road tires. So not only is it taking names on the dry circuits, it's also the best off-road rear-wheel drive car for the off-road sector. Like, it's incredible how good this thing is. 4.094 are the stats, and I only have one of it, and it's killing me because the only one that I have of this is 332, and that was before it got buffed. Now it got a handling buff. This thing is in a class of its own. Honestly, it performs like an epic. The 037 Rally is the best RQ64 car right now. Though we talked about, you know, the rear wheel drive, the single drivetrain off-roaders, the next one I want to give a shout out to is the Chevrolet Colorado ZR2. Where the 037 lacks in, the Colorado ZR2, you know, cleans up. So kind of like how the Trailblazer and the G63 go hand in hand, the 037 that is, you know, 323 and the Colorado ZR2 that's 323 go hand in hand as well. Having both of those cars, you would have basically the ultra rare off-road sector on lock. But the ZR2 is absolutely fantastic. It handles well even after it got nerfed. It's still one of the best ultra rares in the game. And the last one I want to talk about in my top 3 for RQ64s is gonna go to the Roof BTR. It's the best ultra rare for the 1 mile, and it's also the most versatile dragster. You know how I said earlier, when it came to dragsters, you don't want to put it on anything with a turn. TVR Tamora, Countach, Charger 3, Aerovet, Mira S, Mira SV, all of those cars are fantastic for the quarter mile, the half mile, the 1 mile, the test bowl for most of them. The Charger 3 not so much. But the BTR, why it stands out is you can put this thing on a twisty. This car is actually viable in 332 and 233. You would never 233 a Mira SV. You would never 233 a Charger 3. You would never 233 a Lamborghini Countach. But for the Roof BTR, it's just so versatile. You want 2 of this. You want one that's at least 332 and you want one that's at least 233. This is a fantastic car for the dry fast circuit as well. It will also hold its own on the twisty circuit, the hairpin road, the North Loop, all the North Loop relays, runway drag, anything. This thing is a fantastic versatile dragster, and I have to say it's the most versatile dragster ultra rare for the ultra rares. Now let's move on to the bottom 3, the worst 3 RQ64s. They all are medium ground clearance and they're all hot garbage. The first one is the Subaru Impreza. This, I have to say, does does not deserve to be RQ64 or 63 or 62 or 61. It's probably an RQ60 car. The Subaru Impreza WRX has been hot garbage ever since its introduction, and I've been saying this non-stop. Everybody knows that this is probably my most hated ultra rare, besides the Tribeca. The Impreza WRX is just such a disappointment. I don't know why this is 64. It's worse than the Evo 4, and the Evo 4 is 63. So yeah, Subaru Impreza, you're just not it. Now remember the stats, right? 5581, because the next car that we're going to talk about has the exact same stats. Audi S1. Why are you here? Much like the Subaru, you guys go hand in hand. You should go down to the RQ60. I would say for the S1, the Audi S1, maybe 61, because the off-the-line acceleration on the Audi S1 is actually pretty good, and I think that's due to the fact that it's a pretty lightweight car. Now, the last one that I want to talk about that's in my bottom 3 for RQ64 goes to the Citroen Metropolis. Now, the Citroen Metropolis, I get why it's RQ64, because the 0 to 60 is incredibly low. The problem is, like I said, when it comes to standard tire 4-wheel drive cars, the only thing you really want to put them on are on the twisties and the city streets, and you need handling for that. So at the end of the day, the Metropolis is going to lose to the city streets and twisties to the Cadillac CTS, which was in my top 3 for RQ63, and the Chrysler Citadel. It's also probably going to lose to the Honda Legend as well. So the Citroen Metropolis, although it has a low 0 to 60, because it doesn't handle, just makes it a car that doesn't really specialize in anything. So the Metropolis is also a very big disappointment. It's also incredibly heavy, weighing 2,100 kgs. So that's going to be my bottom 3 RQ64s, and that is going to be my list for ultra rares. No honorable mentions here for RQ64. I want to give an honorable mention to the A3110. What? A310, but it's a prize car, so you know it's not really going to count. And of course the Ford Edge Sport gets a little bit of a honorable mention as well. But I have to say, the RQ63 cars, it's a hot take, but let me know if you agree with me down in the comments below. I think the RQ63 cars are better than the RQ64 cars, no cap. But anyway, that's going to be it. That's going to be ultra rares. Let me know if you enjoyed this video, and let me know if it helped, and if you agree or disagree with anything that I've said, let me know down in the comments below. But anyway, I hope you guys have a great day. Remember to stay safe, wash your hands, blossom out. Peace.